Right in the middle of downtown Dallas, there's a highway most people have never heard of. It's called I-345, just 1.4 miles long. And for the past 50 years, it has been one of the most quietly destructive pieces of infrastructure in America. It doesn't look like much. 10 lanes of elevated concrete, carrying 180,000 vehicles a day between 2 points of a rapidly growing city. But beneath it, literally in its shadow, sits one of the most culturally significant neighborhoods in Texas history. A neighborhood that was thriving before this road was built. A neighborhood that was never the same after it. What I-345 destroyed to get there, and what Dallas is now spending $1.7 billion to repair, is a story that goes far beyond traffic engineering. This is the story of a community erased by a road, and the long, expensive, complicated question of whether you can ever truly build it back. To understand what this highway cost Dallas, you have to go back. In the early 20th century, Deep Ellum was the cultural engine of Black Texas. Jazz, blues, Black-owned businesses stretching block after block down Elm Street. A self-built economy that had grown from nothing after the Civil War, in a city and a state that offered its Black residents very little institutional support. This wasn't a small or struggling community. Deep Ellum was a destination. People traveled from across the South to work here, perform here, and build their lives here. The neighborhood had its own banks, its own law firms, its own newspapers. Economically self-sufficient in a way that few Black communities anywhere in America had managed to achieve. The musicians who came out of Deep Ellum didn't just define a neighborhood, they helped define American music itself. Blind Lemon Jefferson recorded here. Lead Belly performed here. The raw, electric sound that would travel north evolved through the decades and eventually become rock and roll. It started here, on these streets. Deep Ellum wasn't just a place to live. It was proof of what a determined community could build when it had the space to do it. Then, in the span of a few years, that space was taken away. In the 1950s and 60s, America embarked on the most ambitious road-building program in its history. The Interstate Highway System, 41,000 miles of new road designed to connect every corner of the nation. It was an extraordinary feat of engineering, and in many American cities, it came at an extraordinary human cost. When planners needed routes through dense urban areas, they consistently chose paths through lower-income and minority neighborhoods. The reasons were partly economic. Land was cheaper, legal resistance was weaker, and partly something far less defensible. Across the country, highway construction became a mechanism through which thriving Black communities were deliberately disrupted. Dallas was not an exception. Central Expressway cut through short North Dallas. I-35 divided the 10th Street Historic District. The pattern repeated itself, project after project. I-345 followed the same logic. In the late 1960s, large sections of Deep Ellum were demolished to clear the path for the new elevated highway. Residents were displaced. Businesses that had survived decades of segregation and hardship were shuttered within years. The physical connections between people, the streets, the blocks, the neighborhood itself, were severed. When I-345 opened in 1973, historians described it as the final blow. A wall of concrete erected between Deep Ellum and the rest of downtown Dallas. That wall is still standing today. Walk through Deep Ellum now, and you'll find a neighborhood that has rebuilt itself, but not in the way its founders would recognize. The jazz clubs became live music venues. The Black-owned storefronts became craft breweries, art galleries, and cocktail bars. Deep Ellum today is one of Dallas's most visited entertainment districts. But the community that built it was largely displaced long before the tourists arrived, first by the highway, then by decades of disinvestment, then by the rising property values that came when the rest of the city rediscovered the neighborhood. And overhead, I-345 still stands, 50 years old, aging. The Texas Department of Transportation acknowledges the highway is approaching the end of its functional life. Something has to happen. Here's the thing. The debate about what that something should be has been running for over a decade. And it has exposed a fundamental tension in how American cities make decisions about their own infrastructure. On one side, urban planners and community advocates who argue the highway should simply come down, not rebuilt underground, removed entirely, replaced with a surface-level street grid. Under full removal, the land freed up, around 245 acres near downtown, could support tens of thousands of new residents and jobs. Deep Ellum and downtown Dallas physically reconnected for the first time in 50 years. On the other side, transport engineers and many South Dallas residents, including descendants of the very communities displaced when I-345 was built, who point to one hard number. 180,000 vehicles use this road every single day. Those aren't statistics. They're commuters and workers who depend on this route. Remove the highway without a credible alternative, and you don't heal a neighborhood. You create gridlock across the southern half of the city. Both sides are making a legitimate argument. The fact that this debate took over a decade to resolve tells you everything about how genuinely difficult the problem is. In May 2023, the Dallas City Council voted to approve a path forward. Not full removal, but far more than a simple rebuild. The plan: demolish the elevated structure and reconstruct the highway underground, buried in a below-grade trench with deck parks, pedestrian crossings, and public open space built on top. Traffic capacity stays. The physical barrier disappears. For the first time since 1973, someone standing in Deep Ellum will be able to look toward downtown without a wall of concrete in the way. TXDOT has secured full environmental clearance. Funding has been identified through state transportation funds and proposition revenues. Construction is expected to begin once the adjacent I-30 Canyon project to the south reaches completion. Total cost: $1.7 billion. America is now spending more to undo the damage of this highway than it cost to build the roads that caused the damage in the first place. The bill for 50 years of consequences is substantial. There's a detail from Dallas's history that rarely appears in the official planning documents. When I-345 was still under construction in the late 1960s, the remaining business owners of Deep Ellum organized one final protest. They carried a coffin down Elm Street, a public funeral for their neighborhood, held while the bulldozers were still at work. 50 years later, construction equipment is about to move in again. This time, the intention is repair. A trench instead of a wall. Light and open space where there was once only shadow and traffic noise. Whether that is enough, whether $1.7 billion of civil engineering can genuinely reconnect what was deliberately severed over half a century ago, is a question Dallas will be living with long after the ribbon is cut. The decisions made in the 1960s are still shaping this city today. The communities affected are still here. The cost of those decisions is still being counted. The work to put it right is only just beginning.